Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Angiosperm Morphology course. This course is part of the curriculum of second semester in BS Botany. In the second semester of BS Botany, we have a paper dedicated to plant systematics, anatomy, and development or embryology. And part of this plant systematic portion of this outline is the morphology. And all of these topics like systematics, anatomy, and then the development or embryology these are related to, or these are about angiosperm. So this entire paper is dedicated to this course. In the second semester of BS Botany is dedicated to angiosperms. And this particular course is about the morphology of angiosperm, as the title says here. We have angiosperm morphology. Inside the plant systematics we have various other topics related specifically to systematics, and one of them is the morphology. In this particular course we are going to discuss the morphology of an angiosperm plant. Now, what is morphology? And there is no big deal in it as far as its definition goes, or how we define morphology and what this course is all about. The definition of the morphology and other topics, they will be discussed in the next video. This particular video is an introduction to the course to get you acquainted with or familiar with the morphology. That is what you should have in mind when you are studying morphology of angiosperm, especially if you are new to morphology or if you haven't studied morphology of angiosperms in detail in the past. Then this course introduces you to the various concepts of morphology. Morphology of angiosperms is a vast topic. It's a huge topic, and there is a ton of terms. Various terms are related to the morphological aspects of an angiospermic plant. And when you start morphology and when you come across various terms, one very easily gets overwhelmed and it seems next to impossible. But fortunately this is not the case. As far as the morphology or of an angiosperm is concerned, or what we are going to study in this particular course, we are going to study everything starting from the root and onwards. Usually the discussion or description of a plant starts with the habit, the general form of the body, but habit is what's given in the coming chapters as we go along and study the morphology. So we start with the root and various forms of roots, the kinds of fruits, and various terms related to roots. And similar will be the case in all the plant parts like stem and leaf and flower and inflorescence and fruit. The beautiful or fascinating part of the morphology of angiosperm plant is that you can study it very easily. Plant is an object or a living object, something which is very commonly available, and it is available everywhere around you. If you have a small garden in your home, and if it's not there, when you come out of your home and you can look around, you will find all the angiosperms plants of various kinds, like herbs and shrubs and trees. And even if in your institution or office or whatever the case might be, you can find plants of different kinds. So studying angiosperm morphology is not all that difficult, and obviously you can take trips to fields to study the morphology. So best thing about studying morphology or the morphology of various parts of an angiosperm plants is observation. Take a plant and go through the various terms that you have studied and try to find those parts of the plant to which the terms are related or associated. In that way you can get a better idea of morphology. Although it's all theoretical, we describe it, there are images and diagrams and there are definitions and descriptions. It is all theoretical, but you can do it practically, and you will have to do it practically when it comes to understanding morphology. So observation, or what we usually call practical. So instead of just memorizing the various terms, like terms related to a leaf, for example, that leaf is simple and leaf is a compound, and then various kinds of compound leaves, or various terms related to stem or even leaf, flower, and so forth. So the first thing that you should have in mind, that make it practical. Take short trips to the field. Now what I mean by field, that the source of plants that is available near you. If it is inside your home, a small garden, that's very good, you can study it. Obviously the number of the plants will be limited, but at least you can get an idea, and you can study the various morphological terms to some extent. So these trips are going to help you a lot. You are not supposed to go very far away or to other cities or things like that. You can do it within your own institution, or if there are parks around you, so you can find various different plants, and in that way you can study their morphology. Nowadays it's very common that the students have smartphones with a good camera. Mostly the cameras that are available or which have been installed inside that smartphones, they are pretty good. So you can make use of those cameras, take the images, pictures of the plants, and then you can come back home and compare those pictures with your study material, with the concepts, with the diagrams that you have already studied. So you can take snapshots of the plant parts, plants or plant parts, and that's going to help you a lot when you study a living plant and its various parts. As a rule of thumb, sometimes students get easily overwhelmed when they try to study all the terms together. That is, they go into detail and take into account all the terms, various concepts related to a particular organ or a particular structures. So that becomes very difficult to study something. Now we have a chapter devoted to leaf. Now if you start studying it and you try to take the all concepts with you of the entire chapter and you try to study it, it becomes very difficult. So you have to break it up into small chunks which you can easily study and which you can easily diagnose. So study in small pieces, small chunks. If you have root at your disposal, then you can take a small portion of that chapter or part of that concept like tuberous root or adventitious root or tap root, and then you can study it. In this way you can easily understand the various terms, and it will make your life whole lot easier than to go all out and try to study everything in one step. Diagrams are the heart and soul of morphology, that is drawing. So draw as much as you can. Draw the various plant parts that you have studied. If you are studying root, then try to draw the various forms of roots, and similarly whether it's a leaf or stem or a bud, whatever the plant part might be, drawing its diagram again and again will help you a lot in understanding the concept behind that term or definition or description. If you try to understand or get the hang of a term related to a plant part and you have no diagram or no drawing, no image at your disposal, then it becomes quite difficult to get the concept of that particular term or description. If you cannot draw well, this is not an issue. You will learn drawing, and your drawing will get better with the passage of time as you try to draw more and more of the diagrams of various plant parts. As is the case with other fields of learning, you must have some passion for plants. So botany is no exception. You must have some passion for plants. You must have some certain amount of interest as far as studying plants is concerned. But believe me, even if you don't have passion for plants, or botany was not your favorite subject, when you delve into the study of morphology or plant parts, the things will start to interest you more and more. Hopefully, it might not be the case, but if you start studying plants and you start to get the meanings of terms, various terms and descriptions and definitions, it will obviously interest you. So as far as this passion or this term is concerned or this concept is concerned, study. So if you keep on study, because I give you fair warning that if you abandon the study of morphology for some times, then it's quite a volatile type of subject, so you might forget everything. So you will have to remain in touch once you start the study of morphology. So you'll have to keep in touch to remember the various concepts that you have studied. And finally, something for those of you who have just started studying morphology, or they have just developed interest in morphology study and they're just beginning. As far as the study of plants or angiosperm plant is concerned, please bear one very important point in mind whenever studying the morphology, that plants are very highly variable organisms. The definitions that we are going to cover in the coming chapters regarding roots or leaves or stem and flower and various parts of the flower like calyx, corolla and so forth, and fruit, etc., they are not fixed and rigid definitions. You will come across variations as far as those definitions are concerned. So don't get confused or don't get overwhelmed by the variation that is found in the various parts of the plants within a species. And the important point is that even within the same organisms, the leaves, for example, within the same organism, you will find that they are not exactly of the same kind from the bottom of the plant to the top of the plant, whether it's a herb or a shrub or a tree. So, and if we sum it up in just one word, that is variation. So there is always a great deal of variation in plants of the same species. Now, just to illustrate the concept or to explain the idea, or to explain what do I mean, let's take an example. For example, in leaf and leaf shape. Leaves have very different shapes, and there is a whole lot to the subject of leaf shape, or the shape of the leaf lamina. One of the common leaf shape is what we call ovate. Now we are not studying here the leaf shapes or leaf. We have a separate chapter dedicated to leaf, and we are going to discuss all this in that chapter. But just to illustrate this concept of this variation, what do we mean by, and what you should have in mind, especially for the beginners, especially those who do not have a previous experience in studying morphology. So one of the basic leaf shape is ovate. Ovate is simply oval shape, and you know it is egg shaped. So here it is oval. So roughly an egg is somewhat like this. So this is an egg, oval shaped, although it is slightly tilted, but it is an egg. Now let's convert it into a leaf. So this is an ovate leaf, a typical ovate leaf, somewhat like this. So it has a stalk, petiole, and a midrib. So this is an ovate leaf, oval leaf, egg-like shape. But as I just said, don't think that all the ovate leaves will be an exact oval or just like an egg. So you will come across various different ovate shapes. For example, you can have something like this, in which the base is broad and the apex is quite pointed. Now this is an ovate. For all practical purposes, this is an ovate leaf. So as you can see here, we have somewhat rounded base, but here as you can see the base is somewhat flat, but still it is an ovate leaf. Now the tip can be it can be a little more pointed or even more pointed, so something like this. So again we have a flat base, and here we have quite a bit of pointed leaf, but still it is an ovate leaf, and its base can be rounded. So we can draw another one, and here it is pointed, but as you can see it has a pointed tip, pointed leaf apex. So as you can see, all of these leaves, they are ovate, and you can see the variation. And this is not the end of the story. For example, we have a leaf something like this. So as you can see, it has very broad base, but it is still an ovate leaf. As you can see, it is an ovate leaf. It is quite broad, and then we have a leaf like something like this. So it is the same leaf, and it is quite narrow. Let's make it even narrower. So this is also an ovate leaf. So as you can see, there are different varieties of the ovate leaf. It can even be a little longer. So let's draw another one. Again, it's an ovate leaf, but a little longer as compared to this one. So these are various variations found in the basic oval shaped leaf or ovate leaf. As you can see, we have various different kinds, and still they are all known as ovate. And just to clarify, sometimes we call them, for example, this one, you can call it a broad or broadly ovate. Similarly, you can say this one slightly elongated oval or a narrow oval, and so forth. Narrow ovate or broad ovate or elongated ovate, but still they fall within the definition of ovate leaf. So these are the things to look for when you are studying morphology. Now, okay, these are all ovate leaves, you might say, but what's the point in keeping all those leaves in one basic shape? Why not create a separate shape? Why not create a separate term for all these different kinds of leaf? Now I have drawn few oval shapes, and as you study oval shapes or shapes of the leaves, you will come to know that these ovate leaves have more variations than I have just drawn here. So the question that why not create a separate term for each of these leaves, and the answer is quite simple, that we must have a reference point. We have something to refer to. Now if we create, for example, separate term for each of these leaves, and as you can see in this short video and in a very short span of time, we have drawn 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8 ovate leaves, and it will create 8 different terms for these leaves. And as I just said, that you will come across even more kinds of ovate leaves, so that will increase number of definitions for these kinds of leaves even more, and as the number starts increasing, it will create confusion. So it's very easy to have a basic shape in mind and then simply to study the variation in that basic shape, and we have to refer to all those shapes to one basic shape, and in this case it is ovate. So if there is no reference point, if there is no basic shape, then it will simply turn into a total chaos, and it will become very difficult to study morphology when you have terms and terms after terms and terms after terms and hundreds and thousands of terms, and those slight variations within these leaves will make the study of morphology impossible. So variation in the leaves is very great, but the basic types of leaf shape, for example, they are handful, they are not hundreds, and all the leaves, they are variants of those basic shapes. So this was a final word of caution, so to say, or warning, or something which you must have in mind when studying morphology, especially for a beginner. From the next video, we shall start this Angiosperm Morphology course, starting with root. So we shall start the root and then onward to stem and leaves and so on. Hopefully you will enjoy this course as much as I have done creating it. So let's together explore the morphology of these wonderful living organisms that sustain our biosphere. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.